you're not finding any answer in thoughts. You're finding an answer when thought subsides.
Awareness, the final frontier. This is Awareness Explorers.
Welcome back, friends, to Awareness Explorers. And I am your co-host, Jonathan Robinson, and I'm with my friend and co-host,
Brian Tom O'Connor.
And as we often do, we have a guest to explore the inner realms. And this is someone I've actually been very interested in getting on the podcast because I get his daily kind of inspiration. He calls it holidays, which I like, and we'll ask him about that. But let me tell you a little bit about Salvadore Poe. Sal's message is a radical invitation to wake up to your timeless, free being. It's an invitation to stop seeking and discover that you're already whole and complete in this very moment. He's the author of 4 books: Liberation Is, The Way of Freedom, Blown Wide Open, and The Audacity of Freedom. His website is liberationis.com, where you can learn about his intensives and open Zoom meetings. Welcome to Awareness Explorers, Sal.
Thanks for having me, guys. Nice to be here.
Well, various people in my life said, "Have you interviewed Salvadore Poe?"
Oh, wow.
And when 3 or 4 people say the same thing, you go, "Well, I haven't heard of that guy. Let me look into him." And I know that you were at one time a very much a musician, and then something happened, and then you got into how to become free. And I'd like to know a little bit about that story. What happened, and
Sure.
yeah, where you're at now.
Well, since I was a kid, a teenager, I discovered guitar and loved that, all the music of that era. That I grew up in late 60s, early 70s, mostly amazing guitar players and amazing music. So I got into music, and that was my love. And along with that came with the lifestyle of drugs and rock and roll. So, in my late 20s, I think, or maybe 30, I got signed to MCA Records with my band, like a hard rock band, and we had 2 albums out and toured and on MTV and all of that kind of thing. And more, I want to get to the point where the big shift happened for me, because it was in all of those years, there was never even the slightest inkling or interest in anything spiritual or meditation or nothing. It wasn't on my radar at all. It was only making great music, hopefully, and touring and partying.
Sex, drugs, rock and roll.
Yeah, exactly. And by my late 30s, I was really doing a lot of hard drugs, actually. And at the age of 39, just to cut it short, because my book, The Audacity of Freedom, talks in great depth about all of this. At the age of 39, a big crash came in my being one night after doing too much drugs, and I fell to my knees praying for help. I didn't know to whom I was praying, because I didn't believe in God or anything like that. God was finished for me when I was a child. That's another story. And then miraculously, I fell asleep, which I shouldn't have done because I had a lot of cocaine in my system. And I woke up 3 hours later, and everything was changed. Cigarettes, alcohol, marijuana, drugs were all finished completely, with nothing left over. And when I woke up that afternoon at 3 o'clock on the Avenue A in the East Village in New York City, I somehow knew what to do. I went to this bookshop that I knew called St. Mark's Books, and I had recalled seeing like an Eastern philosophy section or something. I used to like to read a lot, but not spiritual stuff. And so I went there and I looked through it, and I recognized 3 people, which would be Osho, Thich Nhat Hanh, and J. Krishnamurti. So I bought those 3 books, walked over to the Jiva Mukti Yoga Center, signed up for yoga, and that was the beginning. From then, everything was different, a big shift, and immediately I was now cast on the spiritual path. And very quickly, because I was reading books and I was reading Adida and I mean everything, voracious. And the idea of liberation started appearing in the books I was reading. And so the question was then entrenched in my mind, what is this? What is liberation? And that drove me for 7 years, that question. And I went all over the world, every teacher I could possibly find, every satsang I could attend. And I met, dozens and dozens of teachers and a few very authentic ones. A year later, less than a year later, I heard of a teacher. Well, I don't know how much depth you want of this story, but I can.
I'm enjoying it so far, so go for
Okay,
it.
I'll tell a little more. I lived on Avenue A, and so I was on the fourth floor, and on Avenue A was, and right at my door was a bookseller named Rob who wheeled his books from the West Village to the East Village every day and sold books, which was a very nice, charming thing in the village back then. I don't know if they still do that. So he would set up his book stand and sell books, and I started noticing that he had some spiritual books because by now I was reading books. And when I started talking to him, and he turns out he was a Buddhist, and he had done a lot of meditation and things like that. So he was recommending books for me, and he said, "Have you read I Am That?" And I was like, "No, never heard of it." He said, "Oh my God, you have to get it." So I was like, "Oh." So
You're
I
not a
immediately
seeker
went.
unless you've read that one.
Yeah, exactly. Immediately, I went to the bookshop and got that, and that was my Bible for about 7 years. That went with me everywhere. That never left my side, no matter where I was in India or whatever. And he also said to me one day, he said, "I'm going uptown to listen to a teacher speak." I was like, "What? A teacher? Really? A living teacher?" Because this is unheard of to me. It was all books, And he said his name was Andrew Cohen. And so I said, "Okay, let's go." I was kind of a very, I just jump, I'm not a very careful person. When something says go, I jump. And so I went to listen to Andrew Cohen speak, and I liked a couple of the things he said. One thing that struck me strong, and somebody was bringing up a lot of philosophical questions, and Andrew said, "What am I going to do with all this philosophical questions?" He said, "You know what you do? Put all of that stuff in a garbage can, put the lid on the garbage can, and throw the whole garbage can out." I was like, "Wow." And that had to do also with psychology and philosophy. I was like, that's kind of radical. And so, and then someone else asked him, "Well, are you the same in real life as you are here?" And he said, "Well, get to know me." And I was like, "Get to know you? Okay, let's go." So 2 days later, I was up in Lenox, Massachusetts, in his
Oh,
ashram, getting to know him. And then I heard that there was having a retreat in Rishikesh the following February, which was a few months later. And of course, I jumped at that and went to Rishikesh for 2 weeks and had unbelievably amazing events going on, psychosomatic, esoteric, revelatory, whatever. I mean, it was really, really unbelievable. And
I've been
so,
to Rishikesh. That's quite a spiritual Disneyland, I called it.
what is Rishikesh? Yeah, yeah, it
Yeah,
is.
yeah,
It is. Yeah, well, that was 1998, so now it's very touristy, but back then it was still pretty rustic,
right.
actually.
Yeah.
And so all kinds of revelations and that kind of thing happened. So I ended up going on a couple of more retreats with Andrew, and then I started seeing cracks in his. I was considering joining the community and all that, but even though I was a neophyte, something said no for me to join. So I went on I think a total of 3 retreats. They were all unbelievable. And then, well, I was living in Sweden now at the time because I married someone there. And then in 2002, I was aching to go back to India. So I went there and I had read his magazine about what is enlightenment, about a jnani named Aja. I don't know if you heard of Aja. He lived in Karnataka. He's like a Ramana kind of, like he's the full blown Indian
Yeah.
jnani, you know. And so I went there and I ended up living with him for 2 years. And that was also a beautiful, amazing experience. And I was a meditator. I would meditate 7, 8, 10 hours a day for months and months at a time. And after that, I started hearing more and more about Tiruvannamalai. And so eventually I made my way to Tiruvannamalai and started living there in 2004. And very quickly there, I heard about this sage named Shiva Shakti Amma. And so at that point, I was tired of all of the gurus and teachers I had seen. So I was like, I'm not interested. But this guy kept saying, go, check her out. I said, okay. And as soon as I saw her, I knew she was also the real deal, you know. And so I spoke to her son and I said, is she's the real deal? She's like, Raman. Of course, he said, yes, you know, yes. I said, can I move in? And he said, yes. So she only had a few people coming at that time, but I moved into the room right next to her room. And I was there for the rest of that whole year, meditating again and having more tremendous experiences, you know. By the end of that year, it had been, I think, almost 7 years of my path and experiences and reading and meditating and traveling and meeting gurus and all of it. And no matter what happened, no matter how many times I thought I was getting enlightened and then finding myself back to being normal, you know, by that time I was really getting frustrated. And I was thinking, I'm just going to move up north and find like a kutir and just meditate for the rest of my life because, you know. And in that moment, someone said, you should go see this teacher named Dolano in Pune. And so I looked at her website, and her website was very bare at the time. It was 2004. She had no audio, she had no video, she had no text, nothing. She had the words, the last satsang, and tears came out my eyes, you know. And 2 weeks later, I was there on her intensive. And the first day, she did a very simple experiment, and then my path was over, you know. And so,
what was that experiment that she did?
She just helped me, and helps people to recognize. Well, I'll use her words to recognize who am I. That's what how she puts it.
Mm-hmm.
And by that time, I was ready because I had all the amazing experiences, you know. And by that time, I was ready and humble enough to be very simple. And her message was simple. And so I recognized what she shared very quickly, and then the rest of the 1 month long intensive was all so easy. And after that, I got back to my ordinary life, making music, living in Pune, going to Goa, going to Thailand, just having a nice life. And then 8 years later, I was back living in Tiruvannamalai, again making music, rocking really loud, cranking rock and roll in my studio and having fun. And there was on Facebook there was a group called, I forget the name of it, but the moderator was named Robert Saltzman. I don't know if you know who that is. Hmm. And so I used to just comment sometimes, and we made a connection, and a lot of people liked my comments, and it was just kind of a hobby because I was mostly having fun making music. And then a woman wrote to me and to chat a little bit, and we chatted, and then she said, you should be sharing. And I really wasn't interested because I was having a good time, you know, making music. And so I resisted at first for quite a while. And then she asked me if I could, she said, I'm working with this one guy and not having much progress. Could you speak with him? I said, okay, I'll speak with him. His name is Ron, very nice guy from New Jersey. And I said, and you know, I'll speak with him, but I'm only going to do this if I see that it's working. I knew that I could do it somehow because I knew the message, you know, and I knew that I could do it. And so I spoke with him, and then she was very good at getting more people to come. And before I knew it, that's what I was. I was a spiritual teacher, you know.
Sort of happened by itself. To that formidable path.
Yeah. And, you know, my last teacher was Dolano. I had a lot of gurus and teachers, and some I met Douglas Harding. I met U.G. Krishnamurti several times. I met real authentic people. I met, of course, a lot that I didn't consider as authentic, but I met real authentic people, you know. Dolano helped me come to the end after all of that. And then I found my own way to share my message. So really the message is obviously the same, but I came into my own way of doing it and helping people to recognize.
Salvadore, you had this quite amazing experience of hitting bottom, praying, and then seemingly all the drug use you were doing left you. Was that
finished?
Would you say that was divine intervention, or how did you think of that?
Oh, I don't know. I wouldn't, you know, I mean, something. I don't know. I don't like to put a definition on it because how do I really know what that was?
Yeah.
All I know was when I literally, I was looking out my window above Avenue A. I had run out of cocaine and I was miserable and I couldn't sleep because I had too much cocaine and I didn't have a Valium or something, which was turned out to be a good thing, you know.
Yeah.
And so I was looking out the window, looking at all the beautiful people. It was noon on a sunny fall day, and all the beautiful people walking about on the street doing their life. And I realized with no, just I completely realized I have completely destroyed my life. I was I was literally crushed and humiliated. And in that moment, my face just went bam onto the floor, and I just said, "Help!" You know, and so I don't know, divine intervention or whatever. There's, we can talk about doership. In my view, there's no such thing. So why that happened, I don't know. That plea for help, something happened within my own mind that
Yeah.
caused that shift. Was it just that seed of out of inspiration was planted in my own mind, or was it divine intervention? I wouldn't proffer an opinion on that, to be honest with you.
There's a shift.
But all those experiences, those amazing spiritual experiences that you had, it sounds like what you realized was that they come and they go and they're not it. And when you met with Delano, it sounds like you were just more focused on just what is. As a matter of fact, I
Yeah,
think in your book, Liberation Is, you said that you could sum it up to in 3 words, what is.
yeah, yeah. That's true. I was ready for that. But that was a huge part of it, recognizing that all of those experiences came and went. But there was another huge part of those experiences because in each of them something was revealed that could never be unknown any longer. For example, in the first retreat that I was on, it was revealed that in a very profound way, it sounds trite to say it, but literally, there's only this moment. There's nothing behind the curtain. There is no past, there is no future. It's not coming from anywhere. It wasn't created anywhere. It only is. And that experience was 4 or 5 days of just mind blowing events happening. But that revelation that came, even though the psychosensual experience left and I was back to being ordinary, I could never unknow that, you know. And that
Yeah.
was kind of true with all of the experiences that revealed something, you know. So that was the value for me of those, you know.
Mhm.
Would you say that through all these gurus and intensives and such that there was a gradual awakening, or was there some point where something clearly changed in you?
Probably the latter, you know. I mean, I, if I have to consider all those years of seeking with those experiences, maybe things were just being chipped away that needed
Yeah.
to be seen or relieved, all beliefs and identifications. I don't know if that makes that a gradual because the recognition wasn't gradual. It was immediate. That's what I share now. Some
Hmm.
people I work with now have been on their path for 40 years and they can immediately get a recognition now. Does that mean their awakening was gradual? I would say no. I would say the preparation took time, but in the moment of being ready, it's not gradual. That happens like that, you know.
Hmm. Hmm.
I will say though, what can be gradual is after that recognition. Still, doubts can come in. Still, not quite sure about that, and I don't use the words embodiment or stabilizing an awareness or anything like that, but just losing the doubt, and being certain in freedom that freedom is your essential being, and that often takes time for many, probably most people actually. So
Hmm.
I work with people ongoingly for some time generally.
Is it sort of like the fan analogy that when you turn it off, it
Exactly.
keeps spinning?
Exactly like that. You turn the fan off, and so there's no more power to the fan, but the blade keeps spinning, and it takes time for it to slow down. What happens if you turn the switch back on, this fan speeds up again. And so these doubts come in, and it's like turning the switch back on again.
Hmm.
And so I work with people for a while, as long as they need to be around, until I keep reminding them of the same thing. And eventually they're like, okay, thank you very much. You know,
When you say you work with people, what would you say that you do?
So some people come to more than one intensive. Some people come to a lot of intensive. Some people come to only one intensive. Some people read my book and that's it. It's different for everyone.
Yeah.
But I hold twice monthly meetings with called the Lions Den, which is for people who have done my intensives. So we can just get together twice a month and they can ask any questions or just be together, what I call being together in freedom. So like that, I do that. Plus I have open meetings. People I'm working with can come to those meetings as well to ask questions if they want to. And generally, many people come to more than one intensive and they find that it just gets more and more big, not bigger, but more and more open and relaxed as they do that. And then after sometimes 2 or 3 intensives, I hardly ever hear from them again.
Hmm.
Well, that's a sign of a good teacher.
Yeah, exactly.
You
That's what I
know,
want. I want to be fired.
yeah,
I'm not like a therapist. A good therapist never loses a client.
right. Well, I'm curious about some of the specifics about things that you teach. For example, I mean, we're called awareness explorers, so we could
Hmm.
start with that. And I noticed that instead of awareness, you use the term aware
Yep.
as a noun. And I assume it's because it's so easy to think of awareness as a thing
Yep.
that you have compared to knowing.
Exactly. It's either a thing that you have, I have awareness, or now you found a new object to be, a new self. I am awareness itself. So I say, actually prefer the word knowing. I used to say aware more, but now
Mhm.
I more say knowing, because knowing doesn't mean knowledge or information, and knowing that I'm speaking about is the same as being. Like the word Sat Chit Ananda, Sat means being, and Chit means consciousness or knowing. So it's being knowing itself. So I use the word aware, or more commonly these days, knowing, because the word like aware or knowing, how do you objectify a word like that? You
Yeah.
can't. It can never be an object. But you can't deny that aware is, I am aware. It's here. You can't deny knowing. Everything is known here. And so I like to, one of the things that I do to be general is to reduce, 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 reduce. We start with the senses, sense objects, the body, the sensations. We keep going back and back. The thoughts keep more and more subtle, subtle, subtle. Even the sense or feeling of I am in the body, which Nisargadatta tells you to hold on to. Even that, of course, is an object. And Ramana Maharshi says, hold on to that I, and eventually that I will disappear. And that's fine and that's great, but let's just go right to it. So I say even the sense or feeling of I am is known, isn't it? I'm aware there's a sense or feeling I am. So we reduce, 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 keep going back, and then you're just left open being.
And being
And
left open being, that sounds a little bit like what you call a holiday.
that's a holiday. That's exactly what a holiday.
Yeah.
If I have to put it in succinctly, a holiday is to know that I am.
Uh-huh.
Not, I don't mean know the sense or feeling I am. Pure being knowing. Be consciously aware of the subject I.
Right.
Consciously aware of the subject I, which is the subject and the object are the same, or there's no subject or object. These words are tricky, but just to just pure knowing being is a holiday. And it doesn't matter if there's a toothache or there are sensations in the body or sounds in the room or even thoughts coming and going. One thing that sometimes some people take a little time to get is, but Sal, I have a holiday, but I don't feel peace. Well, that's not what a holiday is. You can have a holiday and have a toothache, and you might be not so much peace. If there aren't a lot of things going on in the body and mind, when a holiday can very much definitely elicit peace, silence, bliss, for sure. But that's not what a holiday is. A holiday is simply to know that I am. Pure subjective consciousness.
And it sounds like you help people to start to learn a holiday or how to do it by sort of relaxing the focus of
Yeah,
attention. Is that right?
yeah. I say for a moment. And I make it easy. I don't want to say hold on to this even for any time,
Hmm.
because then there's someone there, a doer, holding on to that. I say for a moment. I'll make this very easy. For a moment, come out into the sun of pure being, pure knowing, and know that you're here. Very simple. And so that's how my intensive start. And what many people don't realize, it takes time to recognize, is that's the end, man. That's it. You
Yeah.
know, I start at the end. I start at the end. And then we have to chisel away a lot of ideas and doubts and beliefs. But we start right at the end. What, like I often say, you can't be any further reduced than to nothing. You can't be reduced any further. So I start there on my intensives, and even in my open meetings, I start there, you know. And then, and from this knowing, everything can become revealed. Everything is revealed. Everything is clear. And it's just so easy, just in any moment, like a light switch, to recognize again and recognize this again and be this again and be this again for a moment, you know, until it becomes more default and just kind of natural condition.
I like the word holiday. It's one that is really unique to you.
Yeah.
And what I like about it is it puts a certain spin on it. You know, currently, you don't know, Salvador, but I have shingles, which
Okay.
involve some extreme amount of pain, which I've
Yeah.
never experienced before.
Oh, wow.
And one of the things that helps with this is relaxing into pure being.
Yeah.
Now, I still sometimes have the pain there, but it's not the thing that my being is now fixated on. So it really does feel like I'm taking a holiday,
You
you
are.
know,
In my terminology, I would say, yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly.
you know, and it's really a lifesaver because otherwise, what would normally happen is, you know, you fixate on the pain, then you come up with a poor me story. That story is there whether the pain is there or not. You know, then you
Yeah.
become like a victim, and it
Yes,
spirals downward from there. So
exactly.
I'll actually use your terminology to say, you know, I'm not doing anything now. I think I'll take a holiday.
Yeah. And yeah, but I'm kind of a stickler. I never say take a holiday. I say have a holiday,
Have a
or
holiday. Yeah.
preferably when a holiday happens,
Uh-huh.
because everything is spontaneous. No one takes a holiday. And
Right.
so for one thing that I try to show people, you think you're taking a holiday, but you're not the doer of that either. Let's say you're so-called, this is another topic, but so-called lost in your thinking for a while. Then all
Uh-huh.
of a sudden it dawns on you, I'm lost in thinking. That's a holiday already. And then the thought may come, okay, have a holiday. But that's all spontaneously occurring. So it's not even, so I say when a holiday happens, because in the midst of that movement, you recognize you're lost in thoughts. That happens spontaneously. So it's not even taking a holiday. Holidays
Yeah.
happen.
I'm glad
But
you
when a
said that.
holiday happens, I'm sorry, just one more thing. So when
Yeah.
a holiday happens, no, this is what I am. When a holiday happens, no, this is the root, at least. I'm also the body mind. I don't deny that. But this is the root, the essence, you know.
You know, an inquiry I've been using is, am I doing whatever? Am I doing X, or is this just happening?
Yeah.
And I like how you bring it back to the thought that we're doing stuff is already in the wrong direction.
Well, yes. Well, in that sense, thought in the sense of trying to recognize something or uh, discover something, all thought is in the wrong direction because you're not found in thoughts, you know, in that way.
Hmm.
That's also another thing. Uh, there's so many nuances here, but
Yeah.
you're not finding any answer in thoughts. You're finding an answer when thought subsides. That's when. So I say the answer to your spiritual questions is never an answer. It's when the thought ends, because the thought itself is ego. It's not an ego having a thought. When that thought arises, it's ego arising as a thought. And
Hmm.
so there's never going to be an answer there. So when that thought subsides, ego also subsides. And what's left is the answer, who I am. So that's another thing I share with people.
I also like the way you put it about having a holiday and when you notice that you're lost in thought, because a lot of people say, "Oh, I'm lost in thought. I must be a terrible meditator," or blah blah blah.
Exactly.
But this takes the onus off. It's like,
Yeah.
wow, just simply noticing that. is a holiday. That it
Just noticing your
changes the
lost in
tenor
thoughts
of
is
it.
exactly because you're already become aware. Well, you're always aware. You're never not aware, but you
Right.
become aware that you're lost in thoughts, which means you're now aware of yourself again.
Mhm.
So yes, exactly.
And you also mentioned the body, and I find this very interesting in reading your book, Liberation Is. Um, a lot of people teach I am not the body, and a lot of people feel that teach that you should transcend the body, but you don't.
No,
You talk about that where that there is a body, and why negate it? Why say it doesn't exist? I was
yeah.
wondering if you could elaborate on that a bit.
In fact, there isn't a body if you really examine, because it's only space.
Uh,
But
right.
let's leave that off because there is in this moment the appearance of even a character named Salvador. That, and I don't deny that.
Mhm.
That's life appearing now in this moment as Salvador with this body. And so I say, why deny that? So, and I don't say I'm not the body. I say I'm also the body as well.
Uh-huh. Well, you talk about the concept of form is emptiness and emptiness is form, and so
Yeah,
the I don't know what the whatever you call it, pure consciousness, the universe awareness, rising in a temporary form called the body, but it's not separate like the wave in the ocean that you.
exactly. So, okay, so to go what I call full circle, because we start off in my work at the essence, which could appear to be just awareness or something.
Mhm.
That's what it can appear. Some people even have that question. But I start off there, but then I come full circle at the end. So I say, when thoughts are appearing, what is that? That's life appearing as thoughts. There's no separation. So I say, if life is appearing as thoughts and you're attending to thoughts, you're not lost in thoughts. You're found as thoughts.
Yeah, yeah.
So you're never lost. You're just found in the moment. In this moment, like in this moment, life is appearing as some words coming out of this mouth to this body that appears to look and be Salvador. And so, am I lost as Salvador in this body because words are coming out, or am I life found in this moment as Salvador? That's the way I see it. That's what I consider non-duality myself. Some people, I think, mistake non-duality for meaning I am not the body.
Mhm.
Well, that's duality, isn't it? That means there's awareness and then there's the body. So that's not really non-duality. And so, Ramana has the right, I feel, definition, although I don't think people understand it. He says there's only the self. You can say there's only God also. I like to say there's only God. And that means that's it. There's only God. That means this is also God. Everything that appears. The good guy, the bad guy, all of it is all God. So that to me is what non-duality is. So there's no denying of anything.
Mhm.
Yeah, I often like to think of it that if there is only God, or if there is only life or the universe, if there's only energy rising and falling in temporary forms, if there's only one thing, who could I possibly be? And
It,
it's
it.
it,
Exactly.
yeah.
Who could I be
Oh,
separate? Who could I be separate from it? I think is that what you're saying? Who could I possibly be separate from all of that?
yeah. But I mean, looking inside at the eye, like not the little me, the Brian character, appears in the eye. I know words are difficult at this point, but
Yeah,
if you look inside it, what knows experience, and you do as you say, not try to make it a thing,
yeah,
but
yeah.
keep looking and just falling back and identifying with that. Then at least that's half the circle. I think the full circle is turning around and being that and looking that nothing else, nothing appears outside of that. Nothing is separate.
Right. I would say so. That's how I would say it. So I say, the idea of a big I and a little I, which is or a big self and a small self, I think is also a misunderstanding. I say there's only I. There's
Mhm.
only I, and in terms of the work that I do with people, there's either I blown wide open, knowing itself, pure being, or I hypnotized by movements of life like form. It's the same I.
Right.
I just becomes hypnotized as thoughts for a moment. momentarily. But so then we call that the little I, but it's not. It's the same I. It's
Mhm.
I at rest and I in rising is movement. It's the same I. So I say there's only I. I don't say there's no I, and I don't say there's no self. That's just the way I speak. There's only the self. There's only I is what I say.
Yeah, I
So
think
when
that's
somebody is identified as the quote little I, do you have particular tools or things that you suggest that people do that help them let go of that illusion?
Well, on an intensive, there's a lot of inquiries and things that we come to see. But really, at the end of the day, it's just jumping off all of that movement, that carousel of movement, jumping off and being just being. That's all I can say. At the end of the day, that's really all that needs to be done.
Mm-hmm.
I can't go into too much. I don't even recall, but on an intensive, there's many inquiries that I share with people to hopefully alleviate some false ideas or whatever, and to make it more accessible or easy or interesting or desirable to be nothing, to make it more desirable. Because we have to admit and that in truth we're very infatuated with the movements of ego. Ego's infatuated with itself. And so when mind starts barking, we jump, we follow right along. So big part of my work is bhakti actually. The second part of my intensive is always about bhakti or devotion. And that simply means to start falling more and more in love with pure being and less infatuation with the movements of the mind. And that just takes time generally. More and more, the more you recognize the benefit of being free, the less suffering of being free, the more I would say clarity in just in your way of being, the more that's attractive, and you start falling in love with being. So I call that part the bhakti part of my work,
mhm.
to fall in love with yourself, basically.
I haven't heard that in terms of bhakti being falling in love with pure being. It's often in relationship to a guru
Yeah.
or God or something. And in your path, you had a lot of gurus, a lot of female gurus. I'm wondering if that helped you to have a maybe a more soft devotional aspect to your teachings.
No, Dolana was German. She's not soft, man. She's a
Okay.
fucking head chopper, man.
Uh-huh.
Soft is not a word. She's beautiful, don't get me wrong, and she's funny and she's great, but she's not a delicate flower, put it that way.
Right.
And no, I wouldn't say that. And Shiva Shakti too was a hardcore yogi. She sat in meditation 24 hours a day for years, 20 years before I met her. She never moved. She got out off her bed twice a day to come for darshan for half an hour, and then she
Uh-huh.
went back and sat there. She wasn't. She was probably a bhakta, but I don't know. She never spoke. I didn't hear, never heard a word out of her mouth.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Ramana was a bhakta. Ramana was pure bhakti, man. He was filled with love for Mount Arunachala and the divine and self. He was pure bhakti. People don't get that about him either.
Uh-huh.
So I would say the okay. Here's one way. Actually, it was actually more from Aja, the male guru, that I got a beautiful message from him. Because I would, I lived with him for a couple of years, and I was meditating 10 hours a day, and then, sweeping the meditation hall. He liked me. No one asked me to do that. He liked me. He thought, in this man, jnana and bhakti, no, jnana and karma have come together. Anyway, he liked me. He gave me a room next to his. He said, you stay there. Never would let me leave. But so, and when he would come out on his couch, to sit out there, of course, I always went and look at him, beautiful, loving, because he was amazing. You can look up Aja and Putur, Puttur, Aja and Putur. You'll see his picture immediately. It's like, you can't doubt this guy.
Uh-huh.
And so one day he was sitting in a room, and he didn't speak English, so he didn't like translations either. He didn't care about all of that. One day he was sitting in his room talking to his his Indian students, because it was almost all Indians. There were very few foreigners. I was one of the very few. I was the only one that lived there. and he was talking to them, and and I was sitting by his next in his side, looking at him, looking at as usual with love and like amazement, what a wow, awe. And he turned to me in this diatribe, and then I was sitting next to the guy Satish, who was his closest student, who sometimes would translate for me if I could twist his leg to do it, and and then I just said no, 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 and I understood. I just said no, don't translate, because I didn't want you to hear any words. He had this idea you didn't need the words. So as soon as immediately, of course, after the darshan, I called Satish. What did he say? What did he say? And I got one of the most beautiful teachings I've ever received. He said, "The way you're looking at me, look at yourself that way."
Wow. Wow.
That's bhakti,
Yeah.
and that's a real master. That is a real master right there. He's not caring about himself. So that was huge. And in the moment, I didn't fully get it, because I didn't know myself in that way yet. I knew it was profound, and I was moved, but it wasn't until after my path was over I thought about that. I was like, man, what a beautiful thing that guy gave me.
And when he said, look at yourself that way, he was not talking about looking at the Sal character.
No, of course not. No, of course not. At the time, I didn't know, but of course not. He's pure being, known, conscious, pure conscious, self-consciousness. No, I know that I am here. In that there is no other. And that is the end. That's the divine. That's all. That's the one. That's self. Everything, He said, fall in love with that, basically, is what he was saying,
Yeah, yeah. Well, today I got the daily Substack from you, and it had a very interesting topic, which I'll bring up.
I'm in trouble now. I know.
Yeah, you sure are, Sal.
I know. This topic always gets me in trouble.
Well, I think it's a fascinating topic. The topic is spiritual bypassing.
I know. I knew you were going to say that.
And what I liked about it was that, I'm a former psychotherapist, and there's two ways of looking at spiritual bypassing. One is that you shouldn't do it. You should always be looking at your stuff. You should whatever. And then the other is you don't really need to look at every nook and cranny of every trauma you had as a kid and just be free. And I thought it'd be good to bring it up and expound on how you look at it.
Good. I'm very sensitive about it, because I've got earlier in my teaching days or whatever, sharing, I got in big trouble with that one,
Yeah, yeah.
So my last open meeting, I was speaking to a woman, and she was telling me I did 6 years of therapy work, and my therapist said, you got to be careful about this spiritual bypassing thing. I'm gonna say it all, and then listeners or watchers hopefully you'll forgive me. And she said 6 years therapy, going around that carousel, therapy, my life, me, who's the fault? What am I going to do? I'm a mess, blah 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 blah. And my therapist said, you have to do it. You don't want to spiritually bypass, And of course, that therapist is still in business, of course, And then she got out of therapy and she moved to shadow work for 6 years. And this is her story telling me.
Yeah.
And she did shadow work for 6 years, which is just a different form of therapy, basically, And again, you got to get rid of all your shadows, otherwise you're spiritually bypassing. And then and she was telling me 6 years, I'm doing all this work, nothing. I'm still a mess. I'm not a mess. She didn't say a mess, but I'm not free. I'm not getting it. And then, so how do I want to put this? And then she said, but now I'm starting to realize that the shadow work is not there, but now I'm starting to see something, freedom. I hear what you're talking about, freedom. And I start thinking, I feel ashamed. Am I letting my family down? All this guilt come up, she's going to be free. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. And I said, someone like you is really, I feel, ready for what I want to share. So I never denigrate therapy. I never denigrate shadow work. I say those things have their place and they're necessary. But if it's an endless game, then you're just supporting ego forever. And there's no chance of freedom. So people have to do that as long as they have to do it. But like this great woman that I spoke to, she had recognized on her own that there was diminishing returns at some point, you know. So I think all of those therapy, I worked with many therapists, and I say, keep doing your work. It's great. You'll have maybe a different way of seeing it now, you know. So this is how I like to say it. Ego can be very clever. So ego says when you're in therapy, you have to stay in therapy forever because there's so much to do here.
Mm-hmm.
And so you stay in therapy forever. And ego's like, okay, good. I'm
Gotcha.
still here. I won't be out of a job ever. And
Uh,
then someone gets clever and says, well, that's not really working, but I'm going to try shadow work. And then ego starts worrying, okay, maybe and then you get into shadow work, and ego says, well, yeah, you have to keep doing the shadow work because otherwise you're spiritually bypassing. So ego has come up in the last 10 years with a new clever ploy, and it's called spiritually bypassing. Don't bypass me because then you're doing something bad. And so ego gets to sigh another victorious breath of relief to live another day. Then it gets more subtle, like this woman, I feel bad if I'm free, what's going to happen? Somehow there's an idea maybe freedom means she's not going to love her family or something, I don't know. So ego comes up with another ploy. You should be ashamed for wanting to be free. You're going to ignore your family. Ego continues its loop of keeping you attached to itself. And that's great. And at some point, for some people, they've had enough of that, and then they're ready to be free, and then they come to me. And then it's very simple. But until then, I think everyone should do all of that stuff. I think it's important, you know?
Yeah, I really love that description. I think it's fascinating. I'm sure our listeners will too. I don't sense that they're the judgy type, but it seems like it can be boiled down to the idea that some people have that the experience they're having now needs to change, or something in the future is an experience that I'm going to get.
Yeah.
And either one of those seems to cloud the waters.
Both of those for sure, of course, you know. And so what's the solution? That's a completely natural, that's what we're trained to do, to
Yeah.
feel. And so, you know, and I don't denigrate anything. I don't judge anything. I think it's completely normal and natural for all of those movements to happen. I don't even say get rid of that or end it, or I just say turn attention to freedom for a moment and just see something else. That's all. And in that you can come to understand that in fact there is no future. There's only this. That recognition can help seed the interest of being this, you know. But I don't like to say you need to get rid of that idea or change this or fix anything. Who am I to say? We're not the doer of any of those things. That's thousands of years of cultural inculcation in all of these concepts and ways of being a human being. That what we're doing, the work you do and the work I do, and freedom is not a small thing. It's never been a small thing. Even as accessible it is these days, and even as simple as I hope to try to make it, it's still not a small thing. So I have a lot of respect for all of that stuff, you know, all of it. And all I can say is, okay, come home again, you know. And I say all of those things that trouble us are can either be seen as a problem to be overcome or a gracious tap on the shoulder saying, hey, beloved, turn around, I'm still here. And that's how I see it. And that's how I try to impart to my friends that I work with as well. Whenever anything appears in the mind that's troubling, it can be grace saying, hey, turn around, I'm still here, you know. And then it's all good, you know.
Yeah, I took something called the Finder's Course, and
Oh, I just did a talk with them a couple of weeks ago.
oh, great,
POK.
yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm doing a POK this Saturday. What the leader that presented a view, which I thought was really pretty interesting, is that you can better do shadow work when you are connecting with your freedom
Mm-hmm.
because you can see it more clearly
Mm-hmm.
and you can work with it more clearly than if you're just, drowning in it and totally identified. And I thought that was a unique concept in a certain way that it had been presented to people that you're either doing shadow work and ego work, or you're doing, freedom work, or you're trying to be free, and that you had to choose between the two.
Is it ego clever?
Yes, it is. It is. And
Okay, wait, I can't fool him with the shadow work thing anymore and spiritual bypass. Okay, if you come from freedom, now you can still do the shadow work. But that's okay. I also want to say, I think whatever anyone does is fine, even after they work with me. If someone feels they have things to resolve, do it. Absolutely, 100%. So I don't denigrate that. But I also want the possibility to be there of a very radical change. I want that possibility to be there,
mhm,
which is to see in this moment that there's nothing. There is nothing. That whole shadow, what shadow? When on a holiday like this moment right now, what shadow? You know?
mhm,
So I don't want to denigrate what that person said. That's great and very true. I agree. But in a more extreme way,
mhm,
see now that there isn't even a shadow now.
right.
So both are fine.
Mhm,
And both of you were talking about freedom, and I find this concept sometimes a little hard to understand
So
because,
do others.
yeah, and in
Don't
fact,
make me describe it, please. Oh no.
yeah, I was hoping you might clarify it, but if maybe maybe it's so simple that our mind works overtime.
Words are so, you both use
Absolutely.
work with words. They never get to the exact point.
Nope.
Freedom. A holiday is freedom, is a holiday from me for a moment. So free from me, you can say, freedom from the entire conscious and subconscious and human conscious thing, collective conscious. For a moment, it's free from all of that, isn't it? For a moment. So yeah, and so I say my term for meditation is living freedom. It's not what I used to do 10 hours a day. It's talking and eating and just knowing that I am in the midst of everything, whatever I'm doing. I'm meditating right now. This is meditation.
mhm,
I call that living freedom.
Hmm.
Living freedom. You see, and still everything's going on. So that's how best I can say, because it can sound like a very hyperbolic word. I totally understand freedom. It's like, oh my God. It's not freedom for you. It's freedom from all of that movement for a moment. And I say for a moment, just recognize something.
I like that for a moment part, and that's one of the things I like about holidays. One of my main teachers was Locke Kelly, and he had a
Oh,
phrase, "Small moments many times a day."
that's Dzogchen Buddhism. Short
Yeah.
moments, many times a day, become continuous. I found out my work sort of has some similarity to that as well. I will say, I don't know Dzogchen well, but from hearing short moments many times a day becomes continuous. I want to add one more step. I want to say in that short moment, recognize this is what I am. I'm not saying they don't do that. I don't know that they do or not. But just hearing short moments many times a day becomes continuous. That's great. But in that recognition, no, this is what I am essentially. That's for me. That's what a holiday is.
Yeah, and I think it's better without the phrase becomes continuous because
Yeah,
then we're focused on something that's going to happen in the future.
exactly. That's exactly right. Exactly. And I don't do that.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's right. I totally, because then there's someone in there where, oh, it's not been continuous. Oh no, I was thinking for 5 minutes. I'm such a bad meditator. Oh my God, I'm never going to get enlightened. I got to hold on to something. No, try to make it easy for a moment. Be gentle, relaxed. Just let it happen, and then for me again, not to be redundant. The key is when a holiday happens, realize I am here. This is me. That's for me. What I haven't heard other people say. That's the key. You know.
Mhm.
mhm. Question about living in India for so long.
Mm-hmm.
I've been to India maybe 8 weeks,
Ah.
and it's a challenging place to put stakes in India. What did you get from being in such a different culture for so long that may have affected you?
Well, I mean, that's where I ended up doing most of my spiritual path. And that's where I met, I met Yuji in America, Switzerland, and India, and I met Aja, and I met Shiva Shakti. I met real, genuine, undeniable jnanis.
Hmm.
And just being there in India, and I lived in Tiruvannamalai most of that time, there's something undeniable there. You can't put, like Mount Arunachala, Ramana's mountain. I lived there for so many years. My wife and I built a beautiful house there, which we're now trying to sell to come back. There's just something there I can't deny that is beneficial for self-inquiry. It can
Like
be.
an
Not
energy
for everyone.
or force field, or how would you call it? Transmission?
I don't even know.
Yeah.
Some people say the mountain has the energy, or I don't even say it's the mountain. I don't know. India, and not just Tiruvannamalai, India just has something that
Yeah.
and I've been to many places. There's just something in India that isn't anywhere else. It's 4,000 years of the Upanishads. It is a deep spiritual thing that you can't. And plus, the people are still very spiritual bhaktas. They have so many festivals, and every day they're doing their pujas to their. There's a very deep spiritual thing it's in India. I haven't experienced anywhere else. And
Yeah.
many people wouldn't even notice it, to be honest with you. But for me, that's true, actually.
Uh-huh. I experienced that as well. And every little bit helps, if you're
Yeah,
surrounded by a culture like that, then
yeah,
it's a little bit different.
yeah. And I don't say that it's necessary, not at all. Not at all. You don't need to be in India to do self-inquiry. I'm not the doer. That's just how how it ended up with me. That's
Yeah.
just what happened here.
Brian, you have any last questions?
Well, I loved the fact that you are not the doer, and I love the fact that you talked about that in relation to songwriting as well.
Oh yeah,
I've experienced that. Not that I'm a songwriter, but I've been a performer and a
oh,
singer, and a lot of times I come away with this thought, "Wow, who did that?"
exactly, exactly. I think a lot of artists and musicians recognize that they're not really creating something. They maybe don't have a genuine, deep recognition of what it is. But even Keith Richards said, "I don't write the songs; they come from out the atmosphere or outer space, like a radio transmission." Well, I don't consider that accurate, but he realizes he's not creating something.
Right.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, and by the way, and that question, that topic is one of the biggest parts of my intensive. It's always a few days of my intensive. The question of free will and doership and choice. And have you had anything to do with creating yourself at all? We're going to find out. And I do it in this laboratory here. What I call this is your laboratory. We look in very ordinary things, and by the end of those 2 or 3 days, you have to admit there's no one here creating anything. It's just all I did not create anything about Salvador. And I call that part the end of ego because it is ego that thinks it's the doer. The end of the belief in doership in a very large way is the end of ego as well. That's
Mhm.
a huge topic. We could talk 2 hours from that one only, but
Yeah, as a
Well,
matter of fact, when I was reading your book and highlighting things to ask, I realized that if I were to ask you all my questions, this would be a 6 hour interview
it could
because
be.
there's so much there. But at the same time, it's really simple.
At the end of the day, it's nothing could be more simple because it's you. So what could be more simple?
Right.
But we have a lot of conditioning and ideas and things, and it's not just our own little conditioning. It's the history of humanity's conditioning in our poor innocent mind, you know. And so it's not a small thing, but when the recognition is there, it's like so simple. Of course, it has to be. Yeah. And
I
I
know
try to make it simple. I always try to make it simple. I don't like it complicated. I'm not like, uh, I don't, to be honest with you, I'm not even someone who really likes to talk about this stuff. Like after our call or after a meeting, nothing doesn't enter my mind. I never speak this ever. But when I'm working with someone, I want a recognition. And so I use words. But it's not that I'm in love with talking about this stuff. Some people are, and that's great, no problem. It's not so, I don't particularly love talking about it. I want people to get the message. That's it.
Hmm.
And whatever means I can hopefully in part, that's what I want to do, you know.
Well, I know you're going to be guiding us in meditation, but before that, is there any last things you want to say? I know you have an intensive coming up and
Oh,
how
thank you.
people might connect with you.
Yeah, May 17th, I have a 7-week online intensive. We have a 2-hour inquiry meeting on Sundays and a Q&A session on Wednesdays, and they're recorded video and audio, and then people are required to listen and watch every day. And it's an intensive for freedom, you know, and people on my website liberationis.com, you can, if you're interested, you can look at some testimonials. It works. I hope to create a paradigm shift where you're no longer living exclusively as the character that you have believed yourself to be, an actual genuine paradigm shift where you start living in a different way that includes that, but it isn't exclusively that as well. So
Mhm.
that's what my intensives are about. It's about coming to really know and start living freedom. And I worked with hundreds and hundreds of people over the years, and many will attest that it's been helpful. So
Yeah.
I hope to see some of you on that intensive.
Mhm. Well, why don't you begin with a guided meditation, and then we'll connect back.
Okay, sure. So just for a moment, I try to make it easy. There are all kinds of appearances. There are appearances of the senses, there's appearances in the body, sensations, thoughts, everything is appearing. But I just ask for a moment, don't attend to any of those. Simply attend to the fact of being here. I always ask people to keep their eyes open for this because nothing is denied in meditation. We're not trying to avoid anything. Pure being knowing itself. So we all know thoughts are very insistent, so no problem, no judgment. When you notice that thoughts are there and your attention has gone to thoughts, in the noticing itself, when you notice that, come out into the sun, pure being, for a moment. Nothing is denied. When we are fixated on any particular object, which, let's face it, is quite often thoughts, then our experience becomes quite exclusive, isn't it? We contract around that thought, and the rest of the world vanishes, everything else. But on a holiday, we relax the focus of attention, come out into the sun, pure being, and we recognize everything is here included equally. Equally. The sense objects, the body, the mind, everything is equal. What we're recognizing is this just present moment now, pure being, which is timeless. It is only itself now. In truth, there's nothing behind the curtain here. There's only this, which means there is no past. Past is only a concept in the mind, isn't it? Some memories are stored there, or desires, or fears, or something. But when we jump off that carousel for a moment, that doesn't exist. And we see there actually is no past. There is only this. That's what's actual. Likewise, future as well. The fears and concerns about the future, those are just movements in the mind. But when we jump off that for a moment, what future? There's only this. And from this pure being knowing, you just notice, and not in any forceful way, you just happen to notice the movements of life. Notice things are moving in the visual field, things are moving in the auditory field, things are moving in the sensorial field of the body, sensations, things are moving in the mind. All of that is in movement. Nothing to do about it. But what I am is not moving. This knowing is here consistently, this pure being. At the core of all of the movement is that which never moves. And I say, this is who I am, essentially. You may experience some peace, some silence even, maybe some blissful sensations. That's all nice. Or you may experience a toothache or some other unpleasant sensations in the body. All of those are fine. A holiday is prior to all of that. Even peace, even silence, even bliss are objects known. To what? Well, I say I, pure being. And the body's moving, and the hands are moving, and the words are coming out of the mouth, and nothing touches that. Nothing touches pure being. And while all of these manifold appearances are changing constantly, anytime you care to look, a holiday, what I am, is always exactly the same. Never changing in the midst of all of the change. So just let's be that for a moment. Is that okay for now, guys?
That's fantastic. I really love that meditation, Sal, because it's a little different than a lot of the other ones we have, partly because of the eyes open
Mm-hmm.
and really just allowing everything to be as it is. And I was noticing that what, say, kept me from pure beingness was whenever I attach more importance to one sensation, thought, feeling than another. And that, it could be, oh, I got to do this, or it could be a sensation in my body. But when every sensation, when everything was of an equal importance, call it, or non-importance, then it was very easy to relax into beingness. And that was helpful to experience, partly because my eyes were open and seeing that dynamic.
That's great. Fantastic. Yeah. When the eyes are closed, mind has the opportunity to run rampant more often.
Mm-hmm.
So when I used to sit 10 hours a day, I wasn't sitting in bliss. I was sitting there with mind running rampant and just learning how to sit in the midst of anything. So sometimes I like to just sit here with my eyes closed and it's nice. But with eyes open, mind is a little more calm generally,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I find it beneficial. And Ramana Maharshi says too, he says, you don't have to do self-inquiry with the eyes closed. He says the mind goes crazy when you do that. Self-inquiry, which is what this is, which why meditation is basically, is not just when you're sitting, it's when you're eating, when you're walking down the street, holiday, all the time.
I love that. Often after these meditations, though, I find myself at a loss for words.
That's good.
But I'm very grateful for it, and I'm so glad you came on and shared this so
Thank you so
generously.
much.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you guys. Really, very nice to meet both of you. I really enjoyed our time here. That's wonderful. Thank you so much for having me.
And just again, people can go to liberationis.com, right?
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for that, Brian.
Uh-huh. I'm also at a loss of words, but we got to end this somehow. So till next time, friends, thanks for being here. If you want to support us on Patreon, you can go to awarenessexplorers.com/Patreon. No, patreon.com. I see see what you did to me, Sal.
I'm a bad guy.
Thanks a lot. Yeah. No.
Patreon.com to support them.
/Awareness Explorers, and then we send you a bunch of extra stuff if you support us. And till next time, friends, just keep exploring.
Thank you very much. Yeah, keep exploring. Thank you so much, guys.
Sal.
Thank you. Nice to meet both of you. Thank you. Thanks
You too.
Cheers.
Thank you for listening to Awareness Explorers. To learn more, you can check out our website at awarenessexplorers.com. Please subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast app. We'd love it if you would post a review. And please share our link with family and friends, because knowing yourself as awareness is the greatest gift you can give yourself or someone you love.